acrobatics, sorry, was the difference maker. So not a factor here for Alan. Another tick in his favor in what I think should be a pretty safe matchup for him. As long as nothing goes too wrong, I still prefer the Demon Hunter.
And that's a pretty good opening hand to start with. The Spectral Sight already basically an outcast because it's next to this quest, and then he has Tusk Piercer as well. I'm insta-keeping both of those. Whereas for Lamby, I think the Neophyte is a reasonable keep, given that we have seen these Warlock players adjust their game plan versus Demon Hunter to account for the possibility of Glide, which means that you don't necessarily Neophyte on 2, but on turn 4 you might play it after tapping, just as a way to fill out your mana and make sure that you don't actually have too many cards shuffled back into the deck post-Glide.
Okay, keeping the Neophyte at the start is interesting. It's a way to keep your hand size relatively low because it's a card you don't mind just dumping out onto the board. But it is one of those cards, again, as we were saying, that is ideally saved for a little bit later on to protect your bigger threats.
Yeah, I mean, it can be saved to protect big threats, but I think it also can be just a card that negates the Glide itself if Lamby feels like that's a possibility, given that Alan has kept a card next to the quest in outcast position. Lamby could be thinking very likely that's Glide, so he could play the Neophyte into turn 3 given that Alan has this coin. Even if not blocking anything in particular, I do just like the Neophyte as something you can play on turn 4 after tapping and your hand size isn't too big to glide away.
I like it, yeah, and then because they can't glide on 4, you can then just go for dump a bunch of cards on 5 ideally and proceed from there. Good plan.
But it does feel like Alan is just going to take this turn for setup because I don't see a way he gets guaranteed quest progression here. So just Tusk Piercer, Hero Power, Swing Face, I think.
Agreed, yeah. And I also really like actually that he didn't go for quest completion on 2, because it was of course possible with quest, coin, Tusk Piercer, and then break it Spectral Sight on turn 3. On turn 2, sorry. Because, again, as I've said before, I do think that it's better to save the coin and just go for a more clean quest, guaranteed quest progression on turns 3, 4, and 5. And also just Neophyte alone basically just ruins that game plan because you're very clearly setting up for turn 2 Spectral Sight if you're going for that line.
There's also the slight possibility that you draw the Persistent Peddler in that turn.
That's true.
And you don't actually get the guaranteed quest progression because the weapon break won't draw you anything. He's gonna go for Moarg on turn 2 though, which I really did not expect. He can likely get quest progression next turn with Spectral Sight and, you know, either coining out the other Spectral or ideally playing something that he had drawn by then. But this Moarg, I don't feel it's necessarily accomplishing much because Lamby does have Goldshire Knolls in the deck, right? It's not a difficult way to get rid of it.
Yeah, I think it's partly for the damage, that's not bad, but the main thing is obviously getting the second Spectral Sight in outcast position, and I think he's sequencing it in this order because he is the hybrid version. If he was pure OTK, I think you'd be very happy to just exactly complete the quest each turn, but because he has the brutes, he wants to corral all his card draw into one big turn, which could very possibly be next turn, with Spectral Sight, coin Spectral Sight, and break the weapon. If he gets good discounts, I think there's a reasonable chance that he's able to play Brute on the same turn.
Fair enough. Lamby had the option there to go tap Null or even backfire Null, I believe. It would have been 1 mana by that point, but with the Neophyte Drain Soul, you can already see how much attention he's paying to Glide. Respect paid to the card that Alan now unveils was not a Glide that was kept in the far left position. The Neophyte, though, is, of course, still kind of disruptive. Even though there isn't the Brute there, it means that the Sigil of Alacrity wasn't immediately playable for Alan.
Which is, again, okay for Alan, because it's not just about quest, it is factoring in those brutes in the deck. So while he could, of course, still complete level 2 quest next turn, and he probably still will, there's always the consideration that you just play Sigil, I don't know, maybe trade your Persistent Peddler, Hero Power, spend a little bit of mana, but save it all up for that one big turn once again where you try and go double Brute.
Haven't heard of me.
Oh, super interesting from Lamby with the tempo Tams in here. I was thinking, surely this is the null turn, right? He could have backfired once again here, especially seeing that the far left card wasn't glide, but it looks like he is still paying attention to that possibility here. The backfire also may be held for another on play next turn.
Yeah.
But now look at this, so many cards drawn. He's looking for a brute.
And all of these cards getting discounted as well. That's all 1 mana, all playable for 0, which again, as you said, does mean a very good shot of Brute.
Yeah, if he gets good discounts on what comes off the acrobatics itself, he could even draw further off of the acrobatics itself. Getting scary.
He could trade the Peddler first to discount 1 extra card off of the acrobatics. It's obviously more mana spent when mana is very, very tight on this turn. But you do get an extra reduction, which if it's relevant can be very useful. He's just going with the acrobatics on its own though, which I think is reasonable. And he gets another 2 1-mana cards, which means he can draw 2 more on this turn if he needed as well.
It does mean dumping a Philosophy after having already dumped a Moarg though, which is a bit scary.
That's true.
But it is worth, I think, getting the extra draws here. Just looking for a Brute is not there.
Misses, and that's a big miss as well.
Dumps the Fell Scream in order to not overdraw because he also plays Sigil. And that means for Lamby, surely it's time to start going in with some threats, right? He can get the Anetheron and a Null down here for 1 mana and 2 mana.
That sounds premium to me. Like, he was very clearly playing around Glide all this time, but now that he's seen it's not there, he does still need to be afraid of it because double jump could always draw it at any point. But this is, I think, a perfect middle point where he's using a backfire, which hurts if you get glided, but you're putting so much pressure on the board, it has to be worth it.
That's true. I think Lamby was just saying in the previous turns, 1 Null is not enough, but if I get to play Anetheron and Null, it's very unlikely Alan can glide and deal with everything all at once. And now the glide has been locked by the Irebound Brute, and it's so hard for Alan to discount that enough. I mean, he does have these double jumps, but the hand space itself is kind of an issue here.
It is, yeah. You can dump Sigil. Obviously, he's looking at using Immolation Aura as more than just 2 damage. Philosophy is very big, though.
Yeah. Gonna trade Peddler before going double jump, I guess.
That is his last Moarg, so we have to be pretty careful with that.
This is also tricky because it's final quest as well, so you don't want to overdraw Kurtrus.
True. So he's at 9 cards, right? So trading Viper will get Kurtrus in hand, all good.
Yeah. You trade again. There's not that much time left. Trade again and then swing and then trade the Peddler back, gets all the brutes to 0.
Oh!
All the brutes to 0! Did he fit it in? Oh, is he just bailing on brutes? Really?
He roped. I think he roped.
No.
That's a rope. That is a pure rope. He's at 10 cards with a Sigil in play. Gia, this was an absolute unmitigated disaster.
I agree. This could have been 2 cards drawn next turn that are just going to be burned and 3 brutes on the board. And I think there's 7/8, Derek. It's... Oh, man.
Yeah. That's a real tough one to swallow.
It was a difficult turn. We were laying out all of the things he had to consider, not overdrawing Kurtrus, finding the card draw effects because there were branching decisions to be had from the double jump. If you get glide, you obviously don't have the guaranteed brutes, but having to react in the middle of the turn is necessary to get the job done. But for Lamby here, he's been thrown a bone, but can he capitalize? This looks like a pretty simple Neophyte Giant turn to me.
Yeah.
But can anything go wrong? A big Immolation Aura, perhaps.
Even then, 8 damage is so difficult to actually deal with Immo, right? And he's only got 1 left in the deck anyway. And before all of that, it's a 25% chance to win the game on the spot if Il'gynoth is burned.
True.
There it is.
Oh my god!
Throws it down. Oh, a horrible way for the game to end for Alan in what was looking like, at the start, what was leading up to a very well-played game of Hearthstone. I think he partitioned his resources very well. He was setting up for that big brute turn. He had that big brute turn, but he just didn't have the time to get it in. Those actions just taking him a little bit too much time, and it all fell apart because of that. It's... you know, it is a blunder, but it's hard to even call it that because the game plan was all there. He had navigated a very difficult turn excellently, but just too slowly.
I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me in one form or another where I spend half the turn thinking about what the play is. It finally comes together when I have half the turn left, but then the animations are like, it won't let me do the thing. I finally figured out the perfect play that lets me win the game, and Alan was in an amazing spot if he had gotten the brutes down with the Il'gynoth in hand with the Kirchus to follow up, but because of the lack of time, that means he is on the back foot now, having to queue the Garrote Rogue into Handlock, which is admittedly better than it used to be, which some people would already say it was favored before the nerfs. I don't quite think so as Handlock players improve, but now that the weapon is gone for Handlock and the quest is harder to get done, I feel like Rogue should be in a good spot in general. It's not that the Handlock has zero game plan, though. I think their original mindset of trying to play all the threats at once still is the main game plan. It's just tougher to get there fast enough.
And now's the real challenge for Alan. You know, making that mistake, it sucks. You have to forget all about it. It never happened. You're just moving forward and playing this game as clean as possible. I do think Alan is the kind of player who will be able to move forward with a positive mental attitude, but we'll have to hope that he can put his mistakes behind him with what is a pretty good hand, to be fair, to start off with for the Rogue.
True, this hand does scream PMA. He's kept the field contact and gets the Octobot straight off. I will say it's going to take some time before he can get a good enough proc, though. It still lacks some ingredients to be the perfect hand versus Handlock. I'm talking Swindle, Shroud of Concealment, even Secret Passage to make sure he's doing something in these early turns, because I don't think like 3 or 4 discounts is necessarily enough versus Handlock.
Okay, I mean, generally against Handlock, you don't tempo Octobot because they, of course, have the Shadow Blast, and unless you're proccing it on the very next turn, they can just lead into a null to clear it out. So just Dagger up on this turn makes an awful lot of sense. Maybe even Neophyte next turn to play around a backfire. Makes sense.
I agree. There was some argument for Neophyte this turn, but generally Warlock almost always wants to tap on 2 now because they don't have access to coin weapon into backfire curve anymore. As it happens, so Lamby's just going to go straight away coin backfire, which does still allow him to potentially use his mana efficiently if he hits a tour guide and the next turn.
Yeah, it just allows him to go null on 3 if you're willing to forego the tap. Now that he's got a Nether on, I do think it will end up with just a tap on turn 3, especially with the Octobot already having been activated.
And with that backfire, I did say I don't generally feel like 3 or 4 discounts is enough versus Handlock, but Alan feels like he's under enough pressure after having seen the backfire that he's just gonna go for it. I don't know if it's necessarily field contact the very next turn. If he gets passage, I think he will deviate to that. Oh man, I want to hold Derek. I don't think this is good enough.
There are so many good draws, but the problem is, as you I think are alluding to, like, you're going to shoot your own Octobot with the Brain Freeze. I guess you would rather just wait for them to play a big threat, right? It's so likely they have at least a null on the following turn that you can shoot.
Pretty much a complete pass for Alan here without the Shroud, without the Passage, without the Swindle. He's losing time. Time is a weird concept in Hearthstone. It's in this matchup, it's like the number of cards in your deck.
True. I think I'm still going tap null. Yeah, I just want to get these taps in, and given that you're fairly likely to find Raise Dead in the next few cards, this Neophyte can be used to protect a very meaty board in the coming turns.
With this amount of pressure, no choice left to hold, so it's going to be field contact into... I think you start Brain Freeze because there's a decent chance you might proc this Octobot depending on what comes off the top. Oh, but he is going Neophyte first, okay.
Oh, second Octobot being used with 20 cards still in deck. I don't know if you can afford to. I think you just have to play your cards without the Octobot.
Yeah, I mean, he can play all three of them. So a
Yeah.
Brain Freeze, and then the Prize Plunder and the Ethereal Augur Merchant. I don't think he will get to 6 cards played, so it's gonna be the Prize Plunder on the Null instead, I think.
Yeah, I like this a lot, especially it plays somewhat around Raised Dead, right? You don't actually want to kill both of these minions.
Okay. This Shadow Step's big. He can get the field contact back.
It is big.
Again, it means that the next turn is not a huge pop-off either, but it at least allows him to get card draw once again and hopefully hit that other field contact. Whether or not he uses this Ethel is up for debate. I'd be inclined just to throw it down here. I want to take every single card draw I can as Alan here, but he says not worth it. Okay.
Such a tough one to navigate. Either way, even with all these expensive spells, lambyseries still has a very good turn with just null, tap, and then
Touch?
probably touch. Yeah, I was wondering if you go with Neophyte, because you can, of course, just VT something with the null first. But yeah, that's pretty clean.
I like getting rid of all the targets on board because these are still not the easiest things in the world for Alan to deal with. He's going again with the field contact, really looking for a secret passage here, I think. There you go.
Okay.
So it's prep passage, or does he step something first? I guess not.
I think the Shadow Step's too valuable, right? You can use it later on
the last one.
With another contact.
I mean, he still has access to full damage here with either 2 Aug Merchants or 1 Aug Merchant and step, an Ethel, I mean, but I do think having some flexibility would be better here. The secret passage is going to be ripped. A Shadow Step animation kind of scared me for a bit.
Yeah,
I didn't actually play it.
Oh, okay.
Shroud into Swindle! That's insane!
That is insane. Now we're cooking with gas.
Okay, not necessarily going to play the Shroud here because it is a little bit scary to leave the 13 on the board with Battlemaster as a threat. And he gets the other Swindle anyway. Okay, this is about as good of a passage Alan could ever have hoped for.
He's still without second contact is the only thing that's scary at the moment, because now all of a sudden he's gone from what, 17 to 8 cards in deck. That was like 9 he drew on that turn. Absolutely absurd. And it's necessary, because with the way this game is going, he needs to win the game on turn 8, I'm going to say, at the latest, or he's going to be under way too much pressure.
Meanwhile, for Lamby, the Neophytes on the other side are the more annoying ones so far, as it turns out here. Because just the field contact with Divine Shield is kind of a nightmare. Like, he does have a clear, but the spells are expensive, and he would really like to send at least the Anetheron face here.
I imagine he's thinking very heavily about this backfire, though, because even if he ends up overdrawing a couple cards, it does unlock... only unlocks the Scavenger. You can't play a removal spell as well. I think, yeah, you're probably waiting one more turn. And then next turn, it's Scavengers, it's the Neophytes as well.
Going Soul Rend instead makes a lot of sense. He gets to completely clear the board and reset it in his favor. I was thinking of something creative with the Tamsin touch interaction with Neophyte on board, but it wouldn't actually clear everything from Alan, and Lamby didn't need all that healing anyway. Tough turn now for Alan. I do think it ends up being secret passage in one way or another, but he needs to clear some space. So he can proc this Octobot with the Aug Merchant and then passage, I think.
That's true, yeah. This is just a premium hand to discount, right? As soon as he gets contact, it's just GG then.
Okay, just gonna step the Octobot. That makes sense. He still has the 2 Aug Merchants, so he still has access to 32 as long as he can get to the bottom of his deck next turn. His original hand had 6 cards. Shroud is insane. Contact is not going to come off the Shroud, though.
Yeah, you wanted that
kind of
contact in the deck. So annoying.
Last 3 cards are Brain Freeze, 1 Thief, and the other Shroud. So he only actually draws 1 Thief, so I don't think it's worth it to play it. He's going Kazakas for 1 cost draw, I'd have to imagine.
You'd think so, yeah.
No draw. There's spell damage, though.
Spell damage? kind of almost more interested in deal 3 just to maybe clear a board. Like, he has all the spell damage he needs. It's just about finding that contact. He wins the game if he draws it next turn.
Yeah. Fair enough, he did take the deal 3. It is just all about surviving. It's not necessarily next turn or the turn after, Derek. It's the turn he draws contact, he wins the game. And he doesn't know when that happens, so he has to create some outs for him to deal with the next board, because all of this hand is not necessarily playable.
And so in terms of the quest progression for lambyseries, if this backfire procs it, then he could go backfire, giant, and neophyte, which looks very, very tempting to me.
I don't think it procs it, though.
Okay, okay. In which case, just giant, neophyte, and touch of the Nathrazim, I guess?
Can you do anything with Tamsin here? No, it only gets the giant down to 2, I think. Or like you can't fit in the neophyte with it.
Right, yeah, and I think the neophyte is probably more important.
Oh, another giant?
Okay, okay.
Oh, he's just going double neophyte.
Double neophyte. He is scared.
Oh my god, he won! Yeah.
The mana, though, with 3 mana Garots, they go down to 2. It's still there, right? As long as he has enough card draw?
Yeah, you can start one Thief, right?
Yeah.
All of this 0 cost, and then you Octobot Procto. You have 3 more draws. Oh, wait a second. He might
works,
have one battle cry.
The Golem's a battle cry as well that costs.
Oh, it is. Okay, okay. I see. Okay, there's a 1 Thief. It's fine. He's saved. I think. Yeah, because he needed to get down to 0 to guarantee this. 0 cards in deck, I mean.
Exactly.
You can do it the other Og Merchant. And he was guaranteed to hit the 1 Thief no matter what order the cards came off with all the battle cries that started in this hand. So this was a guaranteed lethal. Looked a little bit scary, but that last battle cry, exact mana expenditure through the double neophytes from lambyseries, pulls Alan back for the 1-1.
And if you wanted a redemption for the previous game, the way that one ended, this could not have been more perfect. So clean, this gameplay. I think his use of shadow steps throughout the game was absolutely spot on, knowing when to go for the field contacts, when to go for the Octobot, because again, the thing that we didn't talk about that is always a concern is actually having enough health on your minions to actually put the spell damage on, which likely was still going to be okay because he had the double 1 Thief left, but you do always need to consider that, and it meant that even through the neophytes, he still had the ability to go for the lethal. Just a very, very well played game of Gorot Rogue, about as clean as you can get.
That's right. Even though it looked a bit scary at the beginning, he had the field contact and Octobot, but not that many discounts. It was the turn where he went for the big secret passage that really pulled Alan back into this one, hitting the double swindle off of that and managing to end with the other field contact step back at some point. Bought him the time he needed. lambyseries there at the end. Honestly, I'm unsure what the game plan is, because if you go for double neophytes and they just clear those minions, he's not threatening lethal the next turn. It doesn't even have to be a full clear, right? It could just be the 6/6 dead or 1 neophyte. He didn't have Battle Master threatened, so I'm not really sure if he was meant to go double neophyte that turn without pushing lethal, or just say 1 giant, 1 neophyte. In the world where you don't have field contact off the top, I almost certainly win the next turn.
And here we go, the deck for lambyseries that we, well, myself at least, I won't put words in your mouth. I was a big doubter of this deck coming into this week, with the nerfs taken into account, obviously Perpetual Flame at 2, Quest needing 3 overloads at all points, even the last level, which was 2 prior to the most recent set of nerfs. I thought it would be too niche of a deck, only really good against aggro, when its main prey in Shadow Priest has literally been deleted from the game. It's the only class in Asia Pacific that is represented 0 times in Priest. But that clearly has shown to not be the case. lambyseries getting a 3-0 sweep yesterday on the deck, and very much exemplifying what is said about the deck, which is that it's a very 50-50 kind of deck. Like, yes, it's got very good matchups against aggro, but even against the likes of Rogue, Demon Hunter, Druid, the matchups that are called unfavorable, I'd struggle to call it worse than like 45% for the Shaman, maybe 40% if you have a really good list against it.
Still though, I'm a bit curious that Lamby chose Shaman to counter Q Garrote Rogue with over Anaconda Druid, because this Shaman I feel was waiting in the wings for Alan's Hunter potentially. If this Shaman manages to get the win, obviously it works out for Lamby because he then has a straight up favorable at the end versus the Hunter. But then the Anaconda Druid, if he's forced onto that to face Hunter potentially, it's super scary. If anything, Lamby just really needs the win in this one game or else everything looks dire. And Alan starting with the Neophyte on 2 is going to make his life very difficult because a lot of the time, Shaman just wants to coin out a 3-cost card. Yes, Lamby still gets to deviate to the 1 Thief, but it means that Marshpawn is not active next turn.
Okay, spicy plays available now for Alan. I'm looking at Penflinger, Prep, Swindle, Dagger in order to clear it off, get the 3-2 face, and start drawing some cards.
Well, you can just fling twice then if you'd rather not Dagger here. I mean, you leave 1 mana spare?
Yeah, I guess if you get exactly like 1 Thief or Gordon Orc Merchant, that's better.
Yep.
But Dagger's actually not bad, to be fair, right? To be able to contest a Marsh Spawn potentially next turn. Or,
True.
You know, just clear off some damage.
But that Marsh Spawn isn't active. However, Lamby does pick up like quest completion if he wants to.
True.
Just Bloom, Canal Slugger, Lightning Bolt the Neophyte, end up with a 6/4 on board. Potentially even fit in a Note Taker with that. You can go Note Taker, Bloom, Bloom, all the things I said, and end up overloaded for 1 next turn, which still allows him to go Marsh Spawn. I kind of like that.
That is true, yeah. It's really just a question of... Right, it's a question of tempo versus value, right? Because if you do go for that, you have Marsh Spawn obviously left in hand, but you're kind of low on value. Unless you hit something really good off of that, things could get a little scary.
Oh, Derek. Shaman just plays decks and discovers.
Okay.
That's just how the deck works. You are low on value, but you have built your deck in such a way where every top deck is playable immediately from this point, and most of them do give you more value. So I think this is perfectly warranted for Lamby here. He goes about it in a different order than I said, but it's the same effect, right? As long as you play the 2 Blooms for Quest 1, then it's fine.
Exactly. And what is looking like a hand with plenty of options for Lamby, all of which have their benefits. Alan's hand has less options, and they all seem bad. Octobot in hand is obviously the dream against Shaman, but double Shadow Step, Garrote, Penflinger, this hand is just completely dead.
Begging for a passage or a field contact.
Yeah.
I think, I hate that I'm saying this, but it might be a full pass this turn.
Whoa. I hate that you said that.
Like, the only other option is playing Octo Procket, right? Which only discounts you 2 cards.
Yeah, I mean, you could go like Penflinger, Garrote, Penflinger to take out the 2/3, but I hate that I said that. That sounds horrible.
Yeah, using a Garrote like that while there's a Canal Slugger on board, that's already immediately deleting a lot of your maximum damage towards the end of the game. It's all kind of a disaster.
Yeah, you know what? Dagger up and pass. I agree. It's probably your best chance. You need a swing turn in the next couple turns.
It might be a swing turn for the next couple turns. Swing of the dagger and that's it.
Hey.
Well, here we go. Marsh Spawn looking for tempo, ideally. You'll take an overdraft, I think, to maybe shuffle that back.
Yeah, I agree. Molten Blast is close. It's like, it's a well-designed card to where without spell damage, it's okay, it's almost playable, but it really does need just 1 point of spell damage for it to be worth actually playing at this point.
It was a bit tempting to take with the Revolve and get yourself 2 random 1-drops, but I think the rest of your minions shrink on average. But this passage, that's exactly what Alan needed. We're ripping that.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Okay. Prep Swindle, Prep Brain Freeze, okay.
Yeah, this is good.
Not bad.
He clears 2 minions. The field contact will be left on board to die to a Marsh Spawn / Diligent Note Taker, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can just dagger down the Marsh Spawn. It's a swing turn!
It's a swing turn. Yep, this is way above average of what he was expecting from a one draw. He gets the second passage. Maybe he can get himself second contact at some point in the near future and shadow step it back. He can start playing cards at least. He's in the game.
Oh, okay, he's just going Zapper Perpetual Flame to get down the 3-3 as well. Sure, fair enough. Overloaded for 3 the next turn still allows him to go... Well, I guess you probably just use Overdraft for damage then. Like right now.
Yeah, that's getting a little scary. I know you're saying you can top deck value, but with basically no playable cards in hand, leaving yourself purely up to the luck of the draw does seem scary.
Here's the thing, I don't think Lamby needs to top deck necessarily value here. He just wants damage from this point. Alan's at 11.
I guess.
He's believing in the heart of the cards. This is a true Shaman player here. Okay, Alan needs to go now. Octo Procto and then Passage is what I would lean towards.
Yeah, I think he might actually be settling with the cards he has in hand on this turn and then going for Passage next turn, because it looks like he's gearing up for like Penflinger, Brain Freeze, Penflinger, and maybe Octo Proc at the end. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it is Passage.
I think, yeah, with the Brain Freeze before the Passage as well, because it's going to cost 0 anyway if you proc Octobot. I'm just interested in taking as little damage as possible here if I'm Alan, but if he's going to Passage, needs to do it soon. Less than half the turn left on the timer. Off this Passage, we're looking for more Prize Plunderers or one Thief to discover something to deal with this board.
Initiating overdrive.
I don't think he's got time anymore. He's roped out, yeah. And as I was saying, you don't have to do it at all. This can just be make and do with the cards you have in hand, and then go for a big Passage next turn. At the moment, it honestly looks like he's setting up for a win on turn 8, right? If you go for Secret Passage, maybe you draw a Shroud, which can draw you the Prize Plunderer, or the Field Contact, sorry, and then you win on turn 8.
Yeah, fair enough. Spotted a clear on the 2 most threatening minions, which is a big deal. But Lamby here can get Alan down to 11. 2 Lightning Bolts, 2 Serpent Shrines still in the deck. Oh, sorry, 1 Lightning Bolt. And 2 Serpent Shrines still in the deck. So close.
Yeah.
Ton of Discover effects still left as well. But he's miles away from Recon completion because of the nerf. He still needs 2 more Overload spells, and this Fire Sale can blow up the entire board.
Wow. I guess you take that? You do just need to survive a turn, don't you?
I think so.
2 turns, really.
Lamby played the card off the top. One of those cards in hand is the coin, and the other is randomly generated. I feel like just guaranteeing yourself a board clear would be pretty decent here for Alan, but he's saying he wants to win the game the very next turn. Swindle's a great way to start.
Yep.
And Flinger into O2 taunt. Oh, sorry, it's coming back to the hand. Is that... Did it attack before the Passage started?
No, he played it, right? And then
he played
Passage
it?
and it bounced back.
My bad. My bad. The Plunderer, he still has to tank 2 apparently here.
That's okay, right? You're at 7. That's an awkward number to deal for a Shaman.
2. Needs spell damage to make that a relevant breakpoint.
Oh, this is so close.
No!
Oh, no taker with Revolve is absolute trash. It means that even off the top, there are very few outs for lethal. It would have to be... what, guidance into a bunch of burn that you somehow managed to generate there?
Yeah. Ash Tongue.
Oh!
If he had created that on the other side, it would have been nutty, but...
Yeah, true. Prize Plunderer lethal, question mark?
Crowd looking for the other contact.
Wow, still no contact.
Ay. He can look in what's in the One Thief to find like AI Cram Session. He could trade the Fire Sale, but that's not actually thinning his deck. It's just getting him one more chance at contact right now, which is reasonable. He's just trying to win the game right now. But no dice.
AI, Cram Session.
Barrier?
I guess Barrier does something, like they can generate Rock Biter or Storm Strike.
And there's also just 2 minions on the board right now.
True, yeah, that's true.
I mean, what else is Alan gonna spend his mana on this turn? I guess a Neophyte, but I feel like the barrier is even more disruption at this kind of health breakpoint and board state. Okay, gonna go for Flame.
Oh, look at that 4 damage face as well. Take it.
Because that's the relevant part of this for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
all right.
Looking for guidance.
I think that was it. Okay. It's Neophyte, but it's something. That's the one card he can get. He may have an extra turn as well before he's actually dead.
Maybe, but do you go Note Taker Guidance, or you just believe in this first Guidance to give you something good and Note Taker that?
Oh, it's got to be Note Taker Guidance, right? Wow.
I think so too. That was Brukan in hand at least. He can go Note Taker Feral here, even with the Neophyte.
I mean, you have to just take both, right? It's got to be Brukan next turn.
Note Taker Feral into Brukan.
Saving.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, he already gets Brukan in hand after this, right? Okay, this is smart.
Yes.
Because this allows him the mana then to go like Brukan, Note Taker Blue, a Bolt, right? Because he actually still needs.
Okay.
2. He has Coin. He's overloaded for 2.
But Coin will go twice. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think Lamby just gave himself a bigger out here. But there's a contact for Alan. I think
there it is, off the top, and I think that gives him guaranteed lethal, right? He just needs to clear off space from the board, which he can very happily do. Still got 6 mana left and an Octobot in hand. There's no way this doesn't get there.
Agreed. Trade away the Neophyte, play another Ethereal Og Merchant. Step another Og Merchant or any Battle Cry at this point to make your deck go down to 0. I don't know what the last card is, actually. It's Kazakus. That's kind of expensive, actually. Hold on. No, but he can still play it,
that doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. I mean, he needed one more Battle Cry after.
Right, okay.
Because this is 2 Garots, and then you play the Kazakus to draw all the... kind of unexpectedly expensive. Or trade the Fire Sale. Sorry, that works too.
Fire Sale? Yeah, and you can just keep doing that over and over, even if you draw Fire Sale halfway through, right?
And I'm pretty sure if you trade the Fire Sale, you draw all the bleeds before anything.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think every time I've done this, like a tradable card like Guild Trader for lethal, it's been all the bleeds. Let's see. Looks like it's confirmed so far.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can't draw the card you trade back straight away, can you? So it makes sense that you draw the bleeds first. Either way, that is going to be the game 1 for Alan. Very, very nicely done, making things work with what was a disastrous start to the game. He got the passage off the top, got the perfect amount of card draw, and again, it just feels so comfortable on this rogue. It feels like he's never having extreme play paralysis. Like, it came close to roping a couple times there, but it just felt like he was min-maxing his chances there all the way through, and led to yet another very clean game after, admittedly, a very unlucky mid-game for lambyseries. Like, to have that little value after, you know, we were saying you have to believe in the heart of the cards. He believed, and he was not rewarded this time.
In the deck runs all, like, almost all the generation effects you can ask for. The Fireheart, the Serpentine Portals, the Guidances. Even if you get the 2 overdrafts that Lamby was running, you could trade them back. So Note Taker was definitely one of the few whiffs towards the end there, and even so, I think he gave himself the best out for lethal the next turn by not playing the Note Taker with the Feral. That was my mistake. I thought he needed 2 Ferals to get to Brukan, but with the Brukan in hand, right, even though he would have been at 7 mana, if he had drawn Lightning Bolt off the top, he could have gone Brukan Coin, And then that would still leave him 4 mana left to then go the Note Taker and double bolt for the lethal. Very close at the end there. And Alan also, I think, really optimized that turn where I thought it was just going to be passage earlier, but he instead went for a Pen Flinger plus Guardian Og Merchant to remove the Novice Zapper, which then gave him more mana to work with passage the next turn. It did put him down to the breakpoint of 7, but he realized that 7 breakpoint might as well be 9 versus Shaman, right? Because they're dealing in increments of 3. Just nice to see those little nuances.
Indeed. And now for lambyseries, it's a deck or a class that he has sworn by for quite a while. Has been a staunch Druid player, both in Specialist last season and in the more traditional Conquest and Last Hero Standing this season. Going over to the Claw Machine version that obviously Surrender here in Asia Pacific did popularize and then has spread like wildfire this week when players have been desperately searching for some just any decks to fill out their lineups now that Priest has completely disappeared from the metagame. Does throw it away in the starting hand though, which is a little surprising, I've got to say.
Me too. I feel like Anaconda is the win condition in this deck. And the Claw Machine gets you Anaconda guaranteed in the, I guess, not super early. And if you have to play Fungal before you do the Claw Machine, it can always get a bit scary. But I feel like it's in the deck for that purpose and that alone. But Lamby, the fact that he didn't queue this before Shaman also tells me that he feels like this is an abysmal matchup into Garrote Rogue. And maybe he feels like he's supposed to play around more so the Rogue having their turbo onto the board type of game plan in the early game, which the Claw Machine doesn't necessarily help with, right? You'd rather find, like this, Glowfly Swarm.
True. I mean, this is the exact other half of the deck, so fair enough, lambyseries. If you're going to draw like this, you're very happy. And now with, wow, the Guess the Weight as well. I'm just trying to think about how you sequence this, especially if you find yourself with an Innovate or a Bloom along the way.
Right away on turn 1, I'm surprised to not see Alan just tempo out a Guardian Og Merchant, especially when you're on the play. Druid hero power that necessarily. But there's the option to just tempo Neophyte this turn. Obviously, it's not amazing because it's not protecting anything, but it won't die the turn you play it because it's shutting down Lunar Eclipse itself. It's just damage. Kind of favor that versus Druid.
It's true. When they're on the coin, though, like it's so likely to shut down either Coin Overgrowth or or Fungal, sorry, on turn 3. So I can understand, especially when you have the Orc Merchant to fill it out quite nicely and then follow up with probably Kazakus actually, rather than Shroud even.
Right. Fair enough. Neophyte with the Og Merchant is a million times more difficult for Lamby to deal with. Just gonna skip over the Shroud turn. And what he picks off the Kazakus is yet again going to demonstrate what kind of gamer they are in this matchup. There's the opportunity and argument for golems of all shapes and sizes here. Because of the Celestial Alignment. Oh, there's the Octobot as well.
Yeah, I don't think you're looking at 10 at this point in the matchup. Like, if they're playing the non-Glowfly version, I would understand it, but here I'm much more concerned with immediate tempo, and so 5 is where my head is at personally.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah, he's not running alignment, my bad. So it's never 10, it's 5.
Yeah. 1.
Oh, it's
wow.
1.
Okay.
I guess it's essentially 0 with this Octobot in hand.
Poison +1/+1. Okay, you know, +1/+1 can be good, of course, especially with an Octobot. But the question is just really, is it good enough to get through the Glowfly? This is the test for him, and it is one difficult test.
Yeah, without an Octobot preloaded onto the board, it's so difficult to deal with this the turn it hits the board. And Lamby has the Soul of the Forest as the follow-up, so Alan's gonna go procking and digging, it feels like here. 1 mana short of being able to go Shroud and then proc for all of the discounts, but I think what he's doing is trying to play all of these minions and immediately buff them with the Golem for some, I don't want to say counter pressure, but trading power. Because Alan will need to trade versus this. The threat of Arbor Up's just too big.
Yeah, unfortunately the spectators seem to be a little bit funky and we can't see the Discover options. It was a little interesting to me, actually, as to the order you should go in there, because he could have gone Wand Thieves first, right? And then reduce the spells if you don't want to play Shroud, which, of course, gives you less follow-up, but does give you more immediate potential clearing power if you can get yourself, I don't know, Shooting Star, maybe a Combustion, to be able to clear off some of the damage. But either way, it does mean that he has now a pretty impressive board, one that is not necessarily clearable by the Glowfly Swarm.
Agreed. Even with the dagger hit into a 2-1 that's frozen, that's very deliberate so that Alan can kill it the next turn again with his dagger, because it can't trade off while it's frozen. For Lamby here, he has access to Soul of the Forest, which was my first thought. Probably start Nature Studies, though, for the chance at Arbor up, but he disagrees. He's going to end Nature Studies. I don't know if this extra mana bank is really going to be useful. Another guidance.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, with Fungal Fortunes in hand, you never know. Maybe there's some breakpoint or some out that he can play for next turn. Another Octobot is so much mana, of course, that he can cheat, but that's not what he needs. He needs the removal. He needs the card draw. And just having to go Ring Toss for Rogue Secrets, 4 mana for 1 Rogue Secret, that does not sound like a winning play to me.
It doesn't. The best one in this situation you'd have to imagine is Dirty Tricks.
Yeah.
Because Lamby needs to play spells and at least draw Alan some cards. He did allow himself 3 trades here plus the dagger, so there will only be 2 2/2s left on board, one of them still with the Death Rattle.
Yeah.
That's decent. He has time. So I think Dirty Tricks would allow him maybe the value to keep parity here. If he's taking this long, I feel like it's... Oh, wait, it is.
Oh.
Is that plagiarize?
I think that's Bamboozle.
Okay. I don't know what the art is. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. Let's have a little highlight, shall we? Because, I mean, it can catch your opponent off guard if they're going for trading here. Like, if they just go first of all into the Neophyte and you get a random 5-drop. I don't know. That can do something if you just get a really big taunt. Maybe that's enough to get in the way.
Neophyte's super annoying for Lamby, though. I'd assume just take... Oh, I was going to say Thorn Growth Sentries, but I guess they don't particularly trade that well with a 2/4.
Or...
That's a low roll.
Yeah, that's not the one. Damn it, Stuart.
But this insta-second Glowfly with 2 Wand Thieves used from Alan, this is so hard to deal with. Can't really generate any answers.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of it. Like, you can try to struggle on. Maybe by some miracle the Druid's hand is completely dead. But there's just so many ways that they capitalize on this board.
Or even if they just trade everything down, draw cards, eventually they hit Anaconda or Cenarian Ward. And at this point, Alan has given up on combo because of using the Ethereal Aug Merchant. He has too few cards to make even field contact off the top work anything significant. And now there's just a Claw Machine as well. I'm slamming that down.
Yep, guaranteed Anaconda on the following turn.
It's not insta-pick both in this deck.
True.
Don't close your eyes. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay.
Oh my god, these top decks are absolute air. Nothing. Nada.
Did you know the Japanese name of Claw Machine is Crane Game?
I did not know that, but I'm very glad I do.
Yeah, he can lunar it if he wants to get the Anaconda.
Did you know that the Danish name for Hearthstone is a Crane Game as well?
I see. Crane 333 game?
Exactly, yeah. Oh, Anaconda off the top. So lucky there. And I think at this point, Alan, I mean, maybe he'll just hang in there to force his opponent to play some cards as the one final BM. He'll waste his time to waste your time, because you and I both know there are no outs at this point.
Ah, beautiful. The giant Anaconda with the +3/+3. No time wasted here. We are going to game 5. lambyseries on the Druid again, but this time I think Alan will be pretty happy with his remaining deck in the Face Hunter. We already saw this just a while ago. An absolute slaughter of Alutamu versus Give Please, even though Give Please went for the super creative line of turn 2 Best in Shell.
But I think it's actually the Hunter, the Warlock left over, sorry, because the Face Hunter was banned away by Lamby, which is a much more interesting matchup, a much closer matchup as well, I think, because again, for Alan, he does have that kind of old school version of Handlock now with a Netheron in there, the one copy of Altar of Fire, the one copy of School Spirits, which weirdly enough could actually be pretty good in this matchup, right? School Spirits to clear a Glowfly can be premium, and then just turboing through to his own win condition, getting those scavengers online as quickly as possible is a very big deal.
Agreed. And apologies, I really thought the Hunter was up since a couple games ago, and that makes Lamby's Q order make a lot more sense to me now, because the Shaman was never going to get any work done from that point, right? It's not that good into Garrote Rogue, and it's awful into Handlock, especially with the nerf to the Shaman quest. I do think Shaman used to really rely on getting the Turbo Brucon down to have any game versus the Handlock, but this Anaconda Druid definitely has a lot more ways it can beat up on Handlock without the Celestial alignment in there as a downside, I think, in this matchup where you just give them 0 mana Flesh Giants and Knolls. I think Lamby will just be looking to, I mean, ideally play the Glowfly with protection the same turn it comes down, but you can still take the risk of playing one on the board and put them on having the Soul Rend / School Spirit.
Yeah, it's obviously somewhat of a blessing and a curse in terms of Glowfly Swarm, because the obvious answer is Soul Rend, which will clear your board, delete 7 cards most likely from their deck, which can be good because they might burn Flesh Giants, Neophytes, Raised Deads, and Netherons Scavengers, but they might have the Scavengers in hand and be able to play 1 mana 6/6s on like turn 5, which can be very, very scary indeed. I do still think though that you're supposed to just go in with the Glowflies.
Well, I think Lamby set himself up for an alternate game plan though. With the nature studies into Insta Pouch, he knew that this turn he could hero power and align the pouch to have a very likely chance of hitting exactly Lightning Bloom. I think it's 60%.
Right.
And then he found it, which means that next turn, Claw Machine on the board, turn after, Anaconda in hand.
Job's done.
Okay, Coin Backfire again coming in from Alan, and with a Netheron in hand as well. This is looking more than a little juicy. For Lamby, it's a bit confusing now because with the Lightning Bloom top deck, it might be deviate from the Anaconda game plan, because even if he does get Anaconda, he doesn't have things like Germination or Nourish to really justify playing it immediately. So I think he's going to go Vate Glowfly instead. And look at this though from Alan, even though lambyseries has a reasonable play with what Vate Glowfly for 4 minions if he wanted to, a Netheron plus a Cult Neophyte available for Alan on the following turn, he is going in. Yeah,
that's kind of a disaster for Lamby. And because he had the alternative with the top deck of Guess the Weight, I do like deviating from the Glowfly. It's not really good enough here. Anaconda, obviously you're happy to see that, but it does mean the Claw Machine's kind of a dead card for him right now.
Yeah, I think you're still accepting that that's okay. If he can get himself Fungal Fortunes, maybe even a Nourish, or of course the ideal of Germination, this is still very doable for lambyseries, even if it's getting pretty scary on turn 4.
Claw Machine just as remove another on here, basically.
Oh, with the bloom. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the overload's maybe too much to deal with. He's choosing to get rid of Neophyte and a Tour Guide instead. Or just Neophyte. Doesn't want to give Alan 2 targets from Raised Dead. Fair enough. Oh man, it's getting so scary.
Oh, Altar of Fire as well is so big next turn. He can go Mortal Coil or even just tap and then Altar of Fire to get down double Scavenger, right? Like, he can get at least 2 6/6s on board next turn.
That's kind of broken. Lamby needs a miracle right now, and by that I mean fungal fortunes.
Right. That's not card draw. He can go Bloom, Solar Cenarian.
Yeah.
I think that's got to be it. He's just dying.
Yep. The alternative is to hold out one more turn, play Claw Machine, and pray they don't have the Battle Master.
It's unlikely that they kill you any other way, because it's 2 out of 8, I believe, on the second level of... Oh, no, sorry, it's 0 out of 8, because the quest was proc this turn, yeah. So it's very unlikely they have the mana to be able to go to 8 damage this turn.
What to do?
Oh, it's so close!
Okay, if we're talking best case scenarios for Lamby, next turn, let's say there's no Battle Master. He's alive at 9, potentially. If he gets Fungal Fortunes into Germination, he can play the entire hand, basically.
Yeah.
But the odds of that happening are pretty dang low, on top of there not being a Battle Master. So he's going for the Solar Cenarian right now, needs like a Tyrion. Is that a Coil Fang? It's an Alakir.
Okay. That's a clear on the 2 big boys. He is very much alive, but Ray's dead off the top. This is so disgusting. A Netheron, Cult Neophyte. Can he get down as Scavenger as well? It's really close. I think he's 1 mana off. Oh no, with the Coil. He can go Coil, Altar, Neophyte, Scavenger.
Yeah, that's gotta be a lock. It's too powerful. It's too much pressure. Well, actually, Lamby's at 34, and there's no Battle Master in hand. He can live another turn where he does nothing, basically.
Battle Master gone is a relatively big deal as well. He knows that he doesn't have to be afraid of that anymore.
You get accustomed.
Alan just going both Scavengers, sure. I mean, the Neophyte isn't even doing that much on a turn where Lamby only has 3 mana to begin with. That's Nature Studies that can find Fungal or Nourish.
Guidance is something.
Yeah. So you do close your eyes with this Guidance, but you don't snap pick both. You close your eyes and pray.
Yeah. I mean, Nourish, Fungal, Germination, he needs very specific answers here, and those are not it. Celestial Alignment is just doing nothing for him.
Well, trash. And he knows there's a Neophyte next turn as well. Well, very likely. I think Alan would have snap played a Giant if he got it from Ray's Dead.
Oh, oh my god, this is disgusting. I don't think there's any way back here for Lamby.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. 2 more Giants can hit the board with a Neophyte.
Yeah.
Can touch his own tour guide if he wants the Giants down to 0 as well.
Yeah, just so many ways to go about this.
I'm racking my brains for any out for lambyseries.
And you know what? I'm starting to think, as this game is ending, that maybe the turn prior for Lamby, it should have been Claw Machine into a Netheron, right? He could have done that instead of the Solar Cenarian play. And it stayed alive even against Battle Master, I think, at that point, at 1 HP. Would have been very, very...
Could have.
Oh,
It
really?
was at 19 and there was a Flesh Giant and 2 tour guides, right?
Oh, yeah, he would have been
it.
exactly dead. Okay, fair enough.
If we want to be super strict about it, like, he could have hero powered a tour guide at some point, but he was playing around Ray's Dead by not doing that instead. But there you have it. lambyseries throwing it down. Such a close series. He really needed the points. And once again, Derek, I've gotten my prediction wrong. I swear I'm cursed. I haven't gotten a single prediction right ever since we've started doing from Masters Tours. I don't mean like 3 out of 3. I haven't gotten even one particular person at any event correct. Yikes.
Yeah, I'm aware, Gia. Don't worry. I'm keeping track, and I'm winning at the moment. But we can obviously... You can only be so sad, right? Like, it sucks for Lamby. Yes, we're big fans of him. We want him to do well. But still, a top 4 does keep his chances alive of avoiding relegation. A reasonable week next week, and he should be safe. But for Alan, my goodness, 2 finals in a row, coming from the absolute lowest of the low. Last place 2 weeks ago, and it could be back-to-back victories if he takes down Alutemu. With the 4 points he's accrued already, he is already healthily into playoffs contention.
That's insane. The fact that he turned it around in such a small window of time just goes to show how much that positive attitude is serving him well. Just never giving up, putting in the work, riding the momentum of last week, the confidence back online, and I think he just played a very clean series of Hearthstone. Almost nothing we can really question outside of the one game where he ended